Hey guys, and welcome to the latest edition of the Pure Investments podcast. I'm your host Kai, and I'm joined by Smith today. Say hello, Smith.
What's up, guys? What's
How's
up?
it going? So we got a lot to cover this week. We haven't had a podcast, I think, in like a week, right? I believe we skipped last week, so
Yeah, we did.
there's a lot going on. Specifically in the world of Bitcoin.
Yep,
Go ahead.
that 2 weeks is definitely a long time for crypto people, and a lot has happened. We're edging towards a much better market, which is nice to see.
Yeah. If you're watching this on a video podcast, you'll the chart that I have up for Bitcoin right now. As you can see, the purple line I have here, that was the primary log downtrend that we had been struggling with for a while. This line right here that started from 20K and traveled all the way down. We had hit it 3 times, failed to break through until I believe it was Friday night. We
Yep.
finally burst through it with some really big volume. We did something else on Friday night as well at the same time, which was, you can see if you're watching, I have these 3 lines drawn where these were previous trends that we failed to break over. These were previous support ranges, basically, where we tested and failed to break. And I believe I've covered this in previous podcasts. But at the same time, while breaking that log downtrend, we also broke back over our first resistance support line, depending on what you want to call it. Prior support, new resistance. And then we retested it a few hours later and held it. So that is, that's an extremely bullish sign. Breaking resistances, holding them, it's what you want to see at this point.
Yeah, it seems as though we got rid of the tax cutoff that we was talking about on our previous live stream, which was 2 weeks ago. I think the tax cutoff was like the 16th of April, maybe. I'm not.
The 17th, I want to say.
Yeah, either
Something
way,
like
it's one of
that.
those two. We got that out of the way, and it seems as though the market is heading in a positive direction. Like Kai said, we broke the overhead resistance,
Yep.
and now we've formed support above it, which is great. Hopefully, we can stay on and up from here with the tax cut off out of the way. I think that was quite a kind of a big milestone to get out of the way, to be honest. Every single year we see in traditional markets that there is definitely a sell-off and a jump around the April time where the tax cut off is.
Yeah, that's just a historic thing that's happened with at least just Bitcoin in general. Last year, the tax cutoff really is kind of what sparked the first big altcoin run that we ever had in crypto.
Yeah.
That was kind of what started it all last year, where you had Ethereum going from whatever crazy amounts it went to, from $8, and a whole bunch of other coins. Ripple had run at that point, Verge before it was, as big as it is now. All these coins back then, Digibyte, all exploded back around this time last year. And there is probably a correlation there with, as you said, the tax cutoff date. As for Bitcoin, just looking at it right now, we'll see. This is being recorded, so by the time it releases, things may have changed a little bit. But just looking at it right now, we've been consolidating since Friday night on that big explosion, and honestly, everything's consolidated really nicely on a 4-hour chart.
I would have to agree with that.
So, by the time you're listening to this, we could be probably more up near like 9,500 potentially. But, for now, I don't see a reason, looking at the chart on any time frame, that we should break down. I just don't see anything. Looking at the hourly, the 4-hour, we're actually in like a small ascending triangle right now. So, all in all, everything's looking great on the front of Bitcoin. No
Yeah, in
real
terms of
complaints
alt,
right now.
sorry to cut you off, Kai. Just
No, it's
just
fine.
thought I'd jump in there. In terms of alts, I remember saying to a few people probably about 3 or 4 weeks ago now that I was trying to do some technical analysis on some coins, and I was finding it difficult and it was frustrating because patterns weren't evident really. I have felt like I was forcing to do technical analysis, but right now, if you just flick through any of the Binance coins, Bittrex, KuCoin, it's easy to paint the patterns. There's loads of symmetrical triangles. There's loads of ascending triangles. And then when you go on the 1 day chart, the Ichimoku cloud on pretty much every coin is just lingering and it's crossed up. Support has been found, like Kai said. So alts are definitely looking a lot better here.
As you're talking here, Poe just jumped about, I don't know, 10%.
Nice.
It's retesting those highs from, I guess that was like a week or two ago at like 630. If it breaks up out of there, there's a lot of space above. So
One thing that I missed is there's a lot of cups that I've been seeing. I'm not
there
sure
are
if you've seen
cups
that as well.
everywhere. It's
Yes.
really fascinating. Poe had one a few days ago that it hasn't really completed, but you can kind of see it here if you're looking on the chart with the video. Who else has a cup going on? Does ICX have a cup? Yeah,
Oh
ICX
yeah,
has a
ICX has a
huge
cup.
cup. Just one massive cup here.
Yeah,
Um,
it seems to be a running theme across quite a lot of the coins on Binance.
yeah, I mean, just looking around, there's a lot of really nice cup setups going on. So, that in general, a cup is just considered a bullish, type of pattern. So that is
Yeah.
also just good to see for general sentiment. Um, wow, IOST exploded this morning, huh? IOST's up like 22% while I'm filming this right now in the past like 3 hours. So that's pretty impressive.
I must have missed that. Must have missed that one. I've been too focused on
Yeah,
Aeon.
I mean, if you're looking on the video podcast right now, just looking at my watch list, I have one red coin and it's BNB and it's only down 3%. Everything else is in the green on the day, So that's just all in all a good sign. Now I don't know what your opinion is, Smith, on what might happen if Bitcoin does break up more here. Um,
Hmm.
I you know Last year we had that second alt run around like June after the initial one, and everything kind of ran together. Um,
Yeah.
I do feel like we saw there was like a small drop on Friday when Bitcoin ran. I noticed, everything kind of dropped like 5-6% or so. It wasn't like it was back when Bitcoin was up at like 17,000, where it ran like $1,000 up to 17 and every alt dropped like 30%. It wasn't quite that level, but there was definitely a small drop off, which makes me think that we should at least be cautious with alts in general, just while we're watching to see how they're going to react to Bitcoin.
Most definitely. Yeah, we're still transitioning out of that bearish sentiment, so I think there is a little bit of unease at the moment, but it's not too bad. Like you said, we're not going to be able to see those 30% drops again. It is going to be only like those 5-10% dips, which
Yeah.
really is good. And you guys should be utilizing those dips to buy more.
Yeah, I mean, if you're paying enough attention, those are the times to, load up, so to speak. If
Yeah,
you
like I made 15% on DNT just a few hours ago, and that was a dip buy. So
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing that basically since I guess late March, early April. I guess early April really, when everything started to turn. But I mean, I've probably sold the bulk of my PO and bought back in like 3 or 4 times now, just selling at the top and rebuying the dips. I
yeah,
sold about 75% of my holding up at like 600 sats, and I bought almost all of it back at 500. So
yeah,
I've
to
been,
maximize your stack.
yeah, exactly. Just those little scalps go a long way. Because there's just certain times where you can kind of just tell that things are gonna top out there. And it's something to keep in mind as we go through this. Plus, in the event we do get to this one type of situation we're talking about, where Bitcoin starts exploding and it causes alts to drop it all, if you've been taking profits on the way up, hoping to buy a dip later on, well, then you have Bitcoin available to buy that dip because you've been taking some profit on the way up, and B, you don't run that risk of watching your stack like get obliterated if everything did drop off that hard, you know. So that's something to always keep in mind, to be scaling out. A bunch of alts are exploding while we're in the middle of recording this, by the way.
Most definitely,
I
yeah.
was just gonna
Bitcoin's
say,
just tackling with 9,000 at the moment.
yeah, but Elf just jumped about 1,000 sats in the time we've been discussing this. Um,
Damn.
Poe just jumped. A whole bunch of stuff is jumping like 5-10% right now, which is good. you know, it's nice to finally see some green on a weekend, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I forgot it was Sunday. I said
Yeah,
that earlier. It's a
it's
really positive thing seeing alts jump like this on a Sunday.
yeah. We've had some really blood red Sundays with like no volume and just endless bleeding for the
Yeah.
past 3-4 months. So that overall sentiment is just, it's great to see everything kind of moving back in the direction we kind of knew it would eventually.
Yeah, I was tracking ICX's volume like a hawk for the past couple weekends, and the sell off in volume has been like 60-70% on the trading volume on
Yeah.
Binance just for the weekends,
I mean,
which
in
is
a
pretty
sense, if you
brutal.
if you want to really look at it that way, Elf was kind of the indicator that made me think we could be getting into this point when I saw that volume start forming on Elf back in late March, early March. I think you'll
Yeah.
remember that, where I noticed that Elf kind of, if you're watching the video here, you can see it, but Elf had this huge sustained volume for a long time, and when alt season died, Elf's volume died, and it went to flatline basically. And then all of a
Yeah.
sudden, back in like second week of March or so, it kicked back up. I think I didn't notice it until a couple days in there, but since then, you can see the move that Elf's made, and that was actually like one of the biggest turning points that I noticed early on that helped catch a lot of these moves. Was that volume on Elf, just because when you have sustained volume that long and it just dissipates overnight, it's always questionable when it comes back in. You kind of assume that that's the bots getting turned back on, the whales kind of coming back, looking to trade once again. So looking back on it, I thought that might have been nice for a little profit. It ended up being nice for a lot of profit, but it was a little catch that ended up being important, and you can kind of see it market wide at this point too. All that volume that's flooding in.
Yeah, and between I think between Thursday of last week and today, which is Sunday, the market cap has gone up by 50 billion, which is a big jump. I think it might be 40 billion actually, somewhere around there.
April 5th, we were at 257, and now we are at almost 400 billion. I actually haven't refreshed this since I started to get everything ready for the stream. So let's see, what are we at now? Yeah, 397 billion. So yeah, we've gone up more than 50, man. That's almost 130, 150 billion.
And how long? What period of time is that? In start of April? Wow.
Yeah, since April 1st.
I was saying just over the last 3 or 4 days, we've pumped to like 40, 50 billion.
That's probably correct as well. Let's say here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you figure April 16th we were hovering around 320, and now we're at 400. So.
Yeah, exactly.
It's been a good week all around. But I mean, just looking at all these charts here, I believe in one of our last podcasts, I had mentioned the trend of the market cap dominance for Bitcoin and how it would get retested. These lines that you can kind of see, I'm sort of trying to draw here, and how they get retested and then break back up. Right now, we're actually at a resistance, so to speak, on market cap dominance. The height in December for alts was 25%, and we are actually right at that again, which is kind of interesting. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. We could end up seeing a potentially really large thing here. We've never gotten this close to, not the flippening that we always talk about with Ethereum, but just a flippening in general, where Bitcoin actually were to possibly lose its dominance over all the other alts, which could be huge in potential for just market stability as well. We've talked about it a lot, but just in general, if Bitcoin were to not be, holding the whole market hostage all the time, you might see less reactions when Bitcoin's going up or down with alts. They might be more independent of it, which would be great for overall markets. And that's something that I can really see as a possibility. If we break this 25% dominance for all the other alts out there, and obviously I have Ethereum, Bitcoin Cash, all of those hidden. So, I mean, in general, obviously Bitcoin's only at 38% dominance, so it's technically already been captured by everything else. But if this altcoin dominance were to break over that 25% mark, you could actually see all the other alts come close to beating out Bitcoin here, which would be,
that would definitely be a milestone that I reckon a lot of bots would like to utilize as well.
Yeah, exactly. Like, just looking at it, it'd be huge.
Any excuse, really.
Yeah, I mean, it'd just be a big thing that we've been kind of waiting on, because Bitcoin has so much control over the market. Unlike, people want to compare it to the stock market and stuff, but unlike the stock market, where you have sectors that kind of trade together, here, everything relies on Bitcoin's movement still. You might have a couple coins here or there that'll break out when Bitcoin's, causing the rest of the market to be terrible, but just as a generalized overall theme, Bitcoin matters too much to the rest of the market, so I think that
mostly for the high volume coins.
Yeah, especially those. Bitcoin drops or jumps 10%, and you see those coins plummet usually.
Good rule of thumb is to just stick with a strong fundamental coin for any dip buy, just like Neo. like Kai said, there's a correlation there between Bitcoin and
Yep.
the high volume coins.
Yeah.
But more coins that are like 2 or 300 Bitcoin trading volume, they don't matter too much.
Yeah, you'll see less reaction from them usually, or sometimes it's a delayed reaction even, which
Yeah.
enables you to actually get out if you're paying enough attention. It's happened in the past where the whole market dropped like 5-10%, and a couple coins like Poe, back when it didn't have a lot of volume, would just kind of like flag along and act like nothing was happening, and then an hour or two later it would drop out. You
Mm-hmm.
know,
I
so
see
those
that.
are something to keep an eye on as well. Man, Ethereum is looking tremendous right now, though.
Yep, sure is
Um,
sitting right on the fib level at the moment.
is it okay? Yeah, I don't even have a fib drawn on it right now. I'm just looking at the 4-hour chart. You've got MACD about to cross back up. Uh, Stochastic RSI is down. Well, was down at like 4. We're back up to like 30 now, but that's still great. RSI EMA crossed. I mean, it's breaking resistance right now, actually, as we speak. If it goes over, what's this, 0.073, there's a lot of room ahead, which is good for everyone. When Ethereum's doing well, the market's doing well. Let's put it that way. Bitcoin can flag around and not do much, but Ethereum, I've noticed when Ethereum's doing great, the rest of the market just seems to be doing really nicely. So it's good to see Ethereum start to really turn up here for the first time in a while. I mean, this was a brutal downtrend on Ethereum. It just seemed like nothing could stop that red for a long time there.
Yeah, I was definitely expecting a pullback. Well, not pullback. I don't think that's the right word. I was definitely expecting a correction for Ethereum, but definitely not to $300. That was quite a big surprise.
Yeah. I mean, you figure we were up at what? Did we hit 1,500 or was it 1,200 at the high on USD value?
1500, I believe.
Yeah. So I mean, do you figure that's a pretty brutal downturn? But that's what happens. Ethereum, Bitcoin dropped. Geez, I don't even know, what was this, like 70%, 60%, something
It
like
was
that.
around 70%. Yeah.
No, 60. But it dropped about 60%, and during that time, Bitcoin also dropped, 50, 60%. So, do the math. Two things dropping 60% at the same time, it's gonna cause some problems. But Ethereum's looking really healthy right now on a 4-hour chart. I haven't looked at the daily in a while. Well, the daily is a little overbought, but that wouldn't be the first time that Ethereum is like this. You can actually see, if you're looking at the video here, back on around like early mid-December. You can see how Stoke's so high on this right now, but early mid-December we were in a similar spot, and Ethereum just didn't care, and we moved from 0.04 then to 0.12 without looking back really. So I'm not too worried about the overbought levels on the daily just yet. We'll see how that plays out. Regular RSI is a little bit higher than it was back then, though. But we'll see how this plays out. I still, overall, think Ethereum will have a great year when it's all said and done this year. Anyway, Ethereum, I think, will look back on this as being, I don't know about as big as last year for Ethereum, but all in all, I still see us ending the year with Ethereum up in these couple thousand plus range.
I think anyone with little crypto experience would have been quite shaken by that Ethereum sell-off. But anyone that's been around in the market for a couple of years knows that these 70% pullbacks are. I don't know if I should use the word necessary, but they're gonna fucking happen, basically.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? You got to look at the Ethereum pullback before the last run started. We pulled back from 0.15 Bitcoin down to 0.025. It was an 85% drop almost. So, there's no realm where I'm sitting here looking at this current Ethereum correction and going, "Oh man, it's over." You know what I mean? So, all in all, I still think Ethereum, just because of how much use it gets in the marketplace with its tokens, it's basically the de facto standard for launching a new cryptocurrency at this point, is the Ethereum platform. And that alone will keep Ethereum thumping away and being a great coin for, years to come, probably until something potentially like a Neo or an ADA or one of those coins actually has the potential to tear it down. But that's not happening anytime soon to me.
Cough, Nas, cough, cough.
little shilling there from Smith. Um, anyway, I guess we can get into some questions here. Let's see what
Sure.
we've got. So the first question, I guess this would be something for you to handle more, Smith, is about um basically I guess just shorting advice on Bitcoin. I don't
On
short much,
Bitcoin.
but
Yeah. Well, one thing I'd like to say is that when you're shorting and longing on Bitcoin, there's a rule of thumb to appreciate first is that when you're long, you long with confidence, and when you're shorting, you should be skeptical for the obvious reasons that Bitcoin is in a very big bull market. It's a parabolic move. Like if you're going to be shorting it, you have to be skeptical and aware that at any time the bulls could just get back in control. So and obviously, longing, there's infinite upside, and shorting, you can only go down 100%. So, but getting into the deciding factors between shorting zones, I think firstly need to identify patterns, patterns that Bitcoin likes to follow. Recently, we've seen a BART pattern, which is a meme. I don't think you guys should acknowledge that much. It's basically a bull flag that breaks downwards. But for the most part, Bitcoin mostly plays off fib levels. So a good shorting zone will be if a coin is resting on a fib level and it breaks that level, you short. Another thing, just typical patterns like symmetrical, asymmetrical, triangles. I try and identify them, and when the downtrend is broken, that's when you short. It's quite simple, and obviously you want to look for other indicators in line with that, like stock RSI and MACD. Personally, I like to follow Bitcoin on a 5 and a 15-minute chart for when I'm day trading for shorts, but that would only be day trading, like intra-hour trades. You probably wouldn't fall asleep with this trade open. If you did, then you might be in trouble because you probably get liquidated and it's probably going to be high leverage. If you're looking to short on a longer time frame, I'd say 4 hour, maybe even 1 hour, and the 1 day, your best friend. 1 week's definitely a bit debatable because crypto it moves very quickly. So the 1 week it can be quite deceiving. Although people like to say the longer the time frame, the stronger the indicators. I don't think that's the case with up to 1 week in crypto because some things
no,
just happen so quickly that
yeah,
anything on the anything on the 1 week can just be thrown out the window within like 12 hours, really. So
especially
just
on
to
crypto in general.
digress, you
There,
need to look at patterns. You need to identify where and when a coin is going to break down, and that's when you want to short. It's pretty simple, but most people don't do this. They just kind of they see a little sell off, they see a decrease in volume, and they want to short. That's not how you should do it. You should identify patterns and play directly off the patterns. Otherwise, you're going to lose a lot of money. So that's probably going to cover that question. I can't really think of much else other than
no,
the other obvious indicators like an MA cross, like a TK death cross, which is the Tenkan Kijun on the Ichimoku. If you want to read up on that, you can just Google. It's pretty easy. Just Google the TK cross and you can read up about that. And the same for the MA cross. These can be good short indicators, mostly because bots play off them. So if you follow bots, you're most likely going to make money, which is quite a staple thing in crypto.
absolutely. Yeah, no, I think you covered everything correctly. I think the main point that you kind of mentioned was in terms of shorting, you really don't want to be holding long-term shorts like you would for a
Yeah.
normal trade.
I'd
Yeah.
say stick to day trading and intraday, intra-hour, sorry, trades for
Yeah,
shorting.
you're looking for like high leverage scalps. Bitcoin drops
Yeah.
1% and you're in a high leverage trade on a short, then you're in a golden territory. You don't need these 30% moves from the actual underlying asset to make shorting profitable.
Yeah, you
But
definitely need to identify the overall market sentiment before you do any sort of leverage trading.
yeah,
I assume you're talking about leverage trading. Most people who short Bitcoin do it with leverage, so I'll think it's safe to say that you would be considering leverage shorting.
hmm yeah, I mean, you can short without leverage, but most people aren't looking to do that.
Yeah.
Most people are looking for 30-minute quick trade in and out, be done with it. You identify a small turnaround point and you dive in with a short. It's the same concept for longing, really. It's just backwards.
Yeah, with longing, you can like add to it over time.
hmm
If you're using low leverage, then for the most part, you're probably not going to get liquidated.
Yeah, that's definitely an important part. Like with longing, if you're wrong about your entry, you can always average down. With shorting,
Yeah.
you don't really average up.
That
You know,
doesn't really happen.
that's a surefire way to zero out your account very very quickly. Without a lot of luck on your side. But anyway, next question here. Um, I guess I'll take this first, and then I'll let you throw in any ones that you have that you want to throw out
Sure.
there. But
Go ahead.
what coins do analysts feel are currently very undervalued with strong fundamentals that would probably be great for the next alt run or long term holds? So while we discussed this one a little bit already because it's in the process of moving up, I still think that Poet is very undervalued. I'm not going to say that I would recommend buying in at 600 sats for a long term hold per se. Most of my long term hold was accumulated down in this 3 to 400 range. But I still anticipate Poe being one of the bigger movers in the next eventual like real altcoin run. And don't mistake what's happening now for an altcoin run just yet because it's not big enough. Um, you know, but Poe to me is still one of the bigger targets. It just has insanely strong fundamentals. They've got a real world CEO. He's not just some random programmer like a lot of these companies. Um, their director of, I want to say it's engineering as well, is a real world guy who has a real marketplace. I mean, the CEO worked for Washington Post, for Time Magazine, all of that. He was their tech liaison basically. What he did at Washington Post was basically make them into the newspaper of the 21st century, which nobody had done yet. And now he's working with Poe, and that alone is a reason for bullishness just on the company in general because the guy has seen the inner workings of successful companies, and that is what we want these to turn into, right? We want them to turn into companies. We don't want them to just be coins. We want to see these become profitable entities where we basically almost become like shareholders. Right now everything that's done in the crypto space isn't that. Every single thing is just speculation on what could be in the future. So what could be is Poe could be the future of publishing online. So they're one that I look at very heavily. One that you won't see on Binance, but is one of my favorites, is Lambden. Lambden has been on a tear recently, um, down from 8 cents up to over 20 cents here. Same thing with Poe. I would look for a pullback before entering, but this has the potential of several dollars in value at some point this year, especially if they get listed on a real exchange. Right now they're only really on IDEX and HitBTC, which are not you know I don't want to say not real exchanges because they are, but they're not Binance. Let's put it that way, right? At the end of the day, Binance is your end all be all of trading. So I'd like to see that, but Lambden is another one that just has, I don't want to say great fundamentals. They don't have like what Poe has, where they have a guy who used to work at a company run by Jeff Bezos, but they do have a really just an interesting concept of what they want to do with their token, wherein they want to make a fully decentralized exchange that basically allows for atomic swaps, so that there's no risk of you really ever being hacked. If the exchange goes down, you're not a target for it. Everything is held within your own wallet, and everything is done through atomic swaps, which is basically moving coins from one blockchain to another without an intermediary. So the way that you're able to trade from, say, Bitcoin to Ethereum is the exchange holds both of them, and the exchange is your trusted intermediary. Here, there's just a handshaking process that works behind the scenes that agrees on it and then swaps the token. And then they also have a full development suite that they're creating for small companies like a mom and pop grocery store or something who wants to create a blockchain just to track their logistics stuff, like all their ordering and all of that. And ideally, once it's all said and done, you'll be able to do this within 15 minutes, start up a whole blockchain and, transition your company to that. So if everything works out, they could be huge, and at the end of the day, we're still in the early goings with crypto, right? So there is no sure thing with any of these. almost every single coin that anyone is going to mention is going to be, if it works out, this could be massive. But those are the two I'll give out. I don't know if Smith has any that he wants to toss, but those are the two that I'll talk about for now.
Yeah, I completely agree with both of your suggestions. I'm going to give just two for now. Otherwise, we'd probably be here all day because there's quite a lot of undervalued coins. Yeah. The first one you guys have probably heard me mention quite a bit is Origin Trail or Track, which is currently sitting at probably 40 million market cap with a peak of around 100 million. This is a supply chain protocol coin that is aiming to not compete with the current supply chain coins that are that you see in crypto. There's the obvious one being like Ven, VeChain, and Wabi. It's not looking to directly compete with these coins, but actually complement them, which is interesting. So I believe personally that is the deciding factor behind me buying Track, is that it's not actually competing with these big coins that have already established like Ven. It's actually looking to complement them and stand out in its own way. They already have a product out. They've had a product out for like, I believe, 2.5, 3 years. They had their first app published in 2016. So this is a coin that came out of ICO with an app that's already functioning. It already has users, and you often don't see that in crypto. In crypto, you see coins that come out of ICO. They promise something, often don't deliver, and that is why we see a lot of coins coming out of ICO recently and plummeting. The other one I'm going to give you guys is not actually. I'm not going to go off the fundamentals for this one, but the technicals is ADA or Cardano, however you want to pronounce it. I believe this is undervalued technically because it dropped off like 90% from its all-time high. I now remember trading this coin. I was scalping it on a daily basis, and the volume was just something I've never seen before in crypto. Like you would see 1,000 Bitcoin walls just get pummeled, and that is something I'd never seen before in crypto. So there is definitely a hungry whale for ADA, and I believe that it's going to go back to its all-time high, create a new all-time high in the next alt season, just off the technicals. Now, the fundamentals, a lot of people are questioning whether it's worthy of its top 5 spot in the crypto market cap, but I don't think at the moment the market is mature enough to actually decide that, really. Like, if there's a whale that wants to pump a coin, and it's pretty evident there is, then it's going to get pumped like this. It doesn't matter if the fundamentals are like not top 5 material. If there's a whale that wants it to be top 5, believe me, it will be top 5. So there are my 2 coins, ADA and Track.
Yeah, and I'm not actually in ADA right now, but I'm definitely in Track as well. So I pretty much overall agree. ADA had that crazy run, but next alt season you will probably see it break that top. And for anyone who doesn't think that that's possible, go back and look at some of the big coins that ran in the last alt season back in March. Like, Verge at that point was at 300 sats, and it was like, wow, it'll never get higher than that. And it hit, what, 2K, I think, at some point here?
Yeah, Verge definitely had a hungry whale, just like ADA, but not even 1/10 of what ADA has, honestly. Yeah. I've tracked Verge on a daily time basis. I've seen the whale at play there. It's a pretty good whale. Obviously, it had a huge run-up, but the walls that I saw on Cardano was unreal, honestly. Like 1,000 Bitcoin walls coming and going within 30 minutes, 20 minutes.
Yeah. You also have the leverage aspect of ADA too.
Oh, yeah.
Which comes into play there, huge. Let's see what we've got here for our next question. Different strategies to make the most of an alt season. If everything is going up, what are things to look at to make one coin TA better than another? Do you want to take this one, Smith, and then I'll cover anything else, or do you want me to take it?
Sorry, what was the question again?
This one's a little bit loaded. So, what different strategies are there to make the most of an alt season? If everything is going up, how do you use a coin TA to make it seem better than another one? Like if everything's going up, is there a way to be wrong, or is there a way to be more right?
Well, the first thing that springs to mind is diversification. You need to be set up before the alt season. Like I keep saying, now is your chance to do your homework and set your portfolio up how you want it. In my honest opinion, you should have no less than 80% in your long-term portfolio and no more than 20% in your short-term stack that you're actively day trading on. Say Binance, do you want to jump in a coin that looks good? You should have no more than 20% of your portfolio, no matter the portfolio size. Honestly, even if you only have $1,500, you should diversify throw $70 in loads of these low cap coins that you see on IDEX, and trust me, that $70 could be 10 times, 20 times if you're disciplined in holding in an alt season, which is definitely the hardest part for a lot of the new crypto guys, is being disciplined in holding, because there's a lot of emotions that come into play in alt season. You see a coin run up 200, 300%, you want to sell and take profit. Actually, it's nowhere near done then, so you've just kind of shot yourself out of like a 10 times. So diversification is definitely important for you to reaping the benefits in an alt season.
Yeah, I mean, to kind of touch off what you had said too, if you are up 100% on something, don't be afraid to sell in parts. Don't think that you need to jump all out at once and then, oh, it's back down and now I'm stuck. Like, you want to scale out of things. In general, if you put 3 scale out targets on something, which is what I usually do, I usually have 3 different profit targets and I sell 33% and then like 25%, 25%, so I'm holding a little bit no matter what. But in general, if you are scaling out on the way up and you hit 2 price targets and then it tanks back down to a support level, you always have the option of buying back in at that support level with a short stop. And if you're right about that support level and it bounces, well, now not only have you increased your stack, but you've also just in general taken away really any of your risk. Because if it drops, if you put a 3% stop on that support buy and it drops below it, it's not a huge deal, right? You not at the end of the world. You lost a little bit of your profit, but at the end of the day, you still made out on top. And if it doesn't hit and it skyrockets back up and runs another 100%, well, hey, now you bought that support dip and you've added more to your stack and now you're making more profit. There's always re-entry. When I was learning to trade, my mentor, so to speak, always would tell me there's always a re-entry target, right? No matter what, you can always exit a trade and find a way back into it. So never be afraid to take profit when it's present and in front of you, because there's always going to be more than likely always going to be a dip below where you were when you took that profit that you can get back in on. Don't FOMO. If you do take a 25% profit and it goes up another 15%, don't buy back in now and lower your stack. Just wait it out. That's why you sell in sections so that you're still holding some. If you have 100 Bitcoin and you sold 30 of them at 10,000, and then it ran up to 15,000, you sold another 30 of them, right? And then at 20,000, you're not sitting there going, oh man, I should buy more. No, you still are holding 40 Bitcoin or whatever it is that you can, or 30 Bitcoin or whatever it ends up being.
That would be nice.
Yeah, I'm just using it as an example, but you're still holding that to take even more profit at 20,000. And then when it tanks and you're only holding 10 now and it drops down to $7,000 or whatever stupid number it dropped to, oh, then you can start looking to buy back in. So you've got to look at things in that way because they do often correct. Not often down to the levels that they started at, but, just using Cardano, because I happen to have the chart open because Smith was talking about it, say you did buy down at 700 sats where we started the alt season, back in the end of last year, right? And you sold up here, whatever, 3,000 sats. It went back down to 2,500. It was 3,400. It went back down to 2,500. It had a nice correction there. If you had sold up here, you have the opportunity to get back in, and you can see the supports forming and you can re-enter and ride that next wave and so on and so forth. So there's always re-entry, and that's important, especially during an alt season.
Yeah, I touched on that in my risk management article that I did for Pure Investments. If you guys are watching this and you're interested in the question that was just asked for this stream and you want to hear the answers, there's definitely some good material in that article that I wrote. It includes, just like Kai said, scaling in and out of a trade, various tools to risk management to play safe in the market, which will obviously aid you in an alt season. Like I always say to people, capital preservation is more important than capital growth. Otherwise, you will get eaten up if you're just headhunting for profit all the time and you don't have any consideration for the fact that you could lose your money very quickly if you don't keep your wits about you.
Yep. And I mean, at the end of the day, if you do make 100%, right, there's one other avenue that you can always try, and I'm doing it right now on a few coins. If you are up a certain amount, you can always sell your entry and hold the amount that you're up, and it's free coins. Even if it goes to 0, you don't lose a cent, right? So I'm holding, I don't know, it's something like 500 ELF or something, or 1,000 ELF that are completely free because I've made that profit on those, and I didn't pay a dime for them. So at this point, even if it went to 0, all I'm doing is losing the profit that I made on them. And it's not going to go to 0, let's be fair here. But now I can hold those for as long as I want. I can hold them for a year or two, you know, just to see what happens and maybe ride out an alt season or two with them. You know, that's another avenue to look at too.
I just want to put some emphasis on the point that you made earlier, that when you scale out of a trade, you always leave maybe a 5 to 10% left in that coin, just in case it does have that run up that no one expects.
Yeah, I mean, you figure, say you put, you know, I'm just going to be spitballing here, but say you put, I don't know, $100 in Verge at 70 sats, right? If you had sold all but 15% of it when it went to 140 sats and doubled in price in like that next day, right? Well, if you held that little bit, it still ran up another, what, 7,000% or 5,000% or something from there. So even that little bit that you were still holding is now infinitely more valuable, you know? So it's always worth holding a small amount of things, and it, in the end, will also help you diversify your portfolio over time.
And also will remove the ability to emotionally sell, because you'll be less emotionally attached to the 15% that you've got in there, because you've already taken your profit out, and you can kind of just let it do its thing, really.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, you know, just as ELF as an example, just because it's the first one I have up on my Delta here, but my net cost in Delta is 0 Bitcoin. I didn't pay a cent for any of these coins that I'm holding right now. They are completely free. Again, it could go to 0 and I don't lose that, so I'm not even emotional, right? ELF's running up 20% right now. I'm just watching it. I'm not thinking of selling that little stack, because at the end of the day, that stack doesn't terribly matter to me, right? I'm not looking for a 20% gain on free coins. I'm looking for, you know, 1,000% gain on free coins. I'm not saying ELF will do that, but that's what I'm looking for. So when you're holding those free coins, you can be completely emotionally dissolved from the situation, you know?
Yep.
Which is a big part of trading in general, is just not being emotional. But I would definitely say the most important part of alt season trading is don't look for the 5,000% gain. You know, what you're looking for is just profits. There's always re-entry. Make sure you're taking profits on the way up, not on the way down. You know, you don't want to be up 100% and then it tanks 20% and then you're sitting there with, do I sell or do I wait till it goes back up? Because that's a much harder decision to make from a logical point of view when you're that emotional on the trade. So if you have set price targets and you're scaling out when it's going up, you can always get back in. And if it keeps going up, you know what? At least you made good profits. Look for a reentry at some point. That's all. And one more. Don't get too attached to a single coin during an alt season. That can often hurt you, because you will be watching those one or two coins and ignoring the entirety of the market, and you can miss a lot of entries. You know, you can see here I've got a watch list probably 40 coins long. You know, it's probably about half of Binance on here. So, you know, try to keep up on everything. Don't just get too tied in or zoned in on one or two coins, because you will miss out on a lot of trading opportunities. But I think that's the last question. I don't know. I don't know that I have anything else. Do you have anything else, Smith, before we sign off here?
No, I think that could wrap it up.
All right. Well, guys, thank you for listening, and always check us out at Pure Investments, and we'll see you next time.